Quinn Lemley with Secrets of the Stage. This is the place where we pull back the curtain on the creative process and we dive into what makes people do what they do when they create. And today I'm really, really excited because we have Shy Chen. He is the founder and CEO of Provenio, which is a digital marketing platform for governments and entrepreneurs and individuals. And it's such a unique product that only Shy can describe how powerful this digital platform is. And so I'd like to welcome Shy Chen. I am
Hi,
so
Quinn.
excited you're here. This
Thank
is
you.
really, really such a bigger than life product that you've created. Just in a nutshell, give us a taste of what Provenio is.
Sure. So Provenio, the name kind of speaks for itself.
Yes.
So it's about being truthful, proven, and Provenio. So if you have the proof, you can prove what it is.
Right.
That's our company in a nutshell. And what that means is that we're trying to protect truth and obviously help monetize it for corporations and governments.
But if you're a novice like
Sure.
me, how would you describe that in a nutshell?
I think it's understanding what is actually fact. So when you know when something has happened, it's an event, and that's factual. You cannot say it didn't happen or you prove it incorrect. And so when you have that fact, that becomes something that you can share, and it's valuable to somebody when they know this happened on whatever date, or this event happened, or
Who the creators
who the
are.
creators are.
So you started your career in the fashion business,
Yeah.
correct? At Louis Vuitton,
LVMH, yeah.
LVMH, right? So let's use this as a tangible form, like the Birka bag or something like that. Why is that more valuable than just buying a Gucci bag?
So with certain creatives, and regardless if it's a bag or a piece of art, when the creator creates something, there's value that they added in from their perspective. And then that perspective is transferred to the owner. And they know how much value there is. And you're exchanging a dollar amount for that value.
Right.
And at the end of the day, you just want to know that that item was made by the right person, by that specific person, because you paid for it. And so that's where the counterfeit market has come in to play a counter role to that. So that's why truth is more important today than anything else, because you can't have fake news or fake informations or fake bags. So you want to know that what you're buying is the real deal.
You're consuming it. We're consuming at such a rapid pace.
Right.
How do you know, or how can you verify quickly that something is authentic?
The most amazing thing is with digital and digital information is that it's a two-sided sword. So you can have fake news with digital information and posting a lot of fake information, but we can also use that same technology to embed the truth. Kind of like when someone has a birth certificate or social security or your fingerprint,
Right.
those things are inherently yours, and you trust the system that captures that data. So if that is actually added to your favorite bag, your favorite watch, your favorite something, whatever it is, that is what we're trying to do.
You know that feeling, right? You buy something expensive, and there's that little voice in your head, is this thing actually real? Well, that doubt isn't just in your head. It's a massive global problem, a crisis of trust that costs our economy trillions. So today we're diving into a company called Provenio that has a pretty wild idea to fix it. What if we could turn truth into currency?
So you're not only proving the origin, but you're also proving the ownership.
Exactly, because our whole program is about birth to end of life. So it's not just, hey, I own it today. It's where did it come from? And if you are going to resell it or gift it, where is it going to?
Where were you with my Breitling 2 months ago? Oh, but so a serial number is not enough.
Well, so it's taking the serial number to another level. So with the serial number, a lot of things that we do with it, with that kind of authenticity, you have to open it up. You need a specialist. With diamonds, you need a special microscope to check the GIA number. So why does it have to be a specialist? Why is it a difficult barrier? Every smartphone that we have is a supercomputer. You can do your verification today as a low man on the totem pole.
Really?
Without being a specialist.
This is the bag.
Amazing. Okay, let me just scan it really quick. Yep, it's authentic.
you're verifying the origin, like all the steps, all the people that worked on the project, and all the ownership?
We have Carfax, we have IMDb pages. Why can't we apply that digitally
Right.
to any one of your products?
That's exciting. Okay. So now you just got back from Russia, and it's a tragic event, but it was such a beautiful event in the way you were able to transform it into digital memories for gifting jewelry.
So I had a good friend who passed away unexpectedly, and she had a daughter in Russia, and they haven't seen each other for many, many years. So I was taking all of her belongings and bringing her ashes back to Russia and presenting it back to her daughter. So I've never met the daughter before, but knowing that they have been separated for many years, I decided to make a jewelry with our technology. And the jewelry is a pendant with her image on there, a holographic image, and inside the pendant was a little bit of her ashes and a chip that we embedded that allowed her to access all of the photos that we could crowdsource from her friends.
Oh, how beautiful.
So that she could always enjoy those moments, even though she never saw her at her death.
And how does she access it?
So using her phone, so every phone, luckily in the last 5 to 10 years, has a chip reader where you use for Google Pay or Apple Pay. That chip is ubiquitous. That same technology can access that information.
Okay, Shy, how did you come up with this idea? I mean, you're working in fashion.
Yes.
And you just had a dream one day and said, how am I going to follow the origin of this bag or this person or this piece of art?
So it came together like organically. So right before I went to LVMH, I was doing a lot of work for Pokemon and Nintendo.
So you were a gamer.
So I was actually doing all the work to coordinate with the movies, the TV shows, the trading cards.
Oh, how exciting.
And obviously there was a lot of value with the trading card. It was a special version of it. So there was obviously counterfeits that we had to protect it from. So I took a lot of that knowledge when we went to LVMH because they had that same issue with Marc Jacobs, with the Dior bags. They were trying to counterfeit it. And so we did all these things where we would tag it with
put it
inside or certain stamps and whatever we had to do. But at a certain point, those physical things could be copied, and people couldn't tell.
Really?
Right. And on top of that, you had to be a specialist, or you had to know inside and secret, so you had to bring it to somebody to go check it out. You, as a consumer, wouldn't be able to do it. So when I left there, I was doing some other startups and big data stuff, and I went to Google Wallet on the early days. And Google Wallet had these chips, and they were testing, how do I pay with my digital wallet?
So this is before Apple Pay.
Way before Apple Pay. So I was part of the early projects, putting little tags on the MTA stands and testing with some Android phones.
Oh my goodness.
And so that kind of sparked the idea of saying that I could tag these little chips that doesn't need a battery, that can last 100 to 200 years, and we can embed it in certain products. And then the advent of blockchain and Bitcoin came out. And the reason why blockchain and Bitcoin was so unique and it became so popular is because they had this public ledger that no one could change. They couldn't fudge, which means that if I gave you $1, it was publicly noted. If you gave that dollar to somebody else, it was publicly noted.
So it wasn't really like having cash where you can hide it.
You can hide it, or you can say, where did it come from? It was all tracked, but the tracking actually, it was valuable because now I have that history of Bitcoin transactions, but if I apply that to your physical goods, then the idea of that IMDb page, who was a producer, when was it produced, where were the filming locations?
Well, we've been doing that forever with
and it's been manual.
Right.
It's been manual.
And Wikipedia too has been manual.
And it's been crowdsourced by other people that you trust to put in that information.
But do we know that information is correct?
That's the question. That's exactly the question. So if you as a person can be authenticated and you know who you are, and you provide truthful information, you are rewarded for providing truth.
Now, you're talking about in your promotionals about like a copy of the truth.
Yes.
So can you talk about that a little bit?
So for each physical item, we want to have a digital twin. And the reason,
a digital twin.
Right.
Right.
Because it's a one-to-one relationship. Back in the day with NFT, when I say back in the day, just like maybe 7, 8 years ago.
Oh God, back in the day.
Back in the day. But 7, 8 years ago, people were saying, well, NFT is the next big thing. Jimmy Fallon would talk about it and promote it. But the big question that I always had was, where is the actual sentimental value? I can't touch it. I can't view it unless it's on the screen. Where do you come up with the value of something that you can't touch and smell and feel? And so the idea of crossing that technology plus the physical chip stuff made the most sense.
Okay.
Because you put value on things you can touch, you can see,
Right.
as a person, as a flower.
The flower, the smell.
Yeah, you can
art.
Art.
Experiencing it.
Exactly, and those things are meaningful, and there's a value to it because you want to know that happened.
Right.
Whether it's personal or public,
Okay.
it's valuable.
And so what are your next steps?
So we're going to Belize next week to talk about how do we apply the same provenance technology for citizens and IDs. So what that means is that I can tag a specific handbag and that we know the origin. For a human being, you have a driver's license or a passport. So we are digitizing that same information and creating a digital twin of your documentation. That opens the doors for you to travel without any issues or barriers.
Or is it going to create more problems?
Well, a lot of the problems with the smaller countries, voter issues, getting a bank account, getting credit, and all those things require you to identify who you are and your history. And yeah.
I'm just curious, you were saying that, but like, what if you have a government that's corrupt and they don't want you to vote? Can they, if it's digital, can they block you from voting?
Well, that's where we would go to countries who want to have this, benefit. I think the benefit of it is that if you can outweigh the benefits versus the
pros and cons, right?
Because the benefit is that now if people are able to identify who they are, if they're able or eligible to work, if they have to pay taxes, they can pay taxes. But it's a double-edged sword again, because the citizens can also say, well, I did pay my taxes. Where did it go to?
What are you going to do with Nigeria?
So they have a small state out in Nigeria that has a similar issue. They said that 20% of their population is banked, that have a bank account. 80% do not. 80% deal in cash or P2P wallet, meaning like a PayPal or Venmo that they have their version of it. Creating a bank of physical brick and mortar was very expensive. And when you did it, it was also very far. So think of Africa as a country. It's huge. So people will walk 10, 20, 30 kilometers to get to a central place, either for water, food, and banking. So having an ATM machine was not the most, easy way to solve the financial problem.
So I just want to recap what you're doing with the Nigerians. You're giving them access to verify their identity.
Right. And then giving them benefits of why they need to verify their identity, because then you can do things like create a digital bank account. Travel, send money to friends or abroad. Talk to a doctor, that your identity is there, your patient healthcare records are attached to your identity.
And how do you protect that identity, though?
So our data system is privatized right from the get-go. So it's good for a government who wants to privatize their information. And we also make sure that every single entry is legitimate. So the timestamp to where you are located, that way you can't make up false records. And because we're both independent and also working for a sovereign, we're going to make sure that our data will never be corrupted or falsified by anybody else, because it's for the sake of the government and the people.
And how do you protect that? I mean, how do you verify? I know that you have a whole system, like, on Facebook and all of that. We have checked profiles and that kind of thing, and you have like a stamp of approval.
Correct. And the stamp of approval, today, when you have a bank account or a social account, sometimes they have this thing called two-factor authentication.
Right.
So you as a person, they will text you a code, like the bank, and then you would type it in. So that's what we have today, and it's just a very simple, let me just check. And they're using your cell phone because they believe your cell phone is a way to make sure that you're real. And we're doing something a little bit more. We're doing 3 factors. So we want to know where you are, who you are, and what you're verifying.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So specifically what you're verifying.
Because I think what we're doing is that we're actually doing not just who you are, but if you're verifying a piece of paper, a document, a flower, or a product that you're selling.
Okay, a flower. How do you document a flower? That you're the creator of?
Who was the farmer who planted? The origin of the seed, the DNA, we can capture. The person who brought it to the florist, and the florist who sold it to you. These are all touch points.
So this is a story.
Yes.
So everything is a story.
That's your IMDb
My mother
page.
always told me that everything in life that's important is a story.
And that's the provenance. The provenance is the story of its origin. And you want to capture that. So that this is mundane, but when it's significant.
Well, let's talk about a piece of art or let's say a musical.
Yes.
Okay, I'm in show business. I'm doing my show. There's so many people. People think, oh, it's just a one-person show, and it's just the one person, but it's not. There's a whole city, a village behind that.
Exactly, and that's important to capture because all of them get credit for being part of that story. And so the farmer never gets the credit on what the florist sold it for.
Right.
So if we're protecting that,
so he has a set price.
Right.
But let's say this flower is like the hottest thing ever.
This podcast.
This is the LV.
This is the podcast that made this flower, worth something.
Okay.
And maybe we can say, by the way, this florist, beautiful flower, the farmer who planted this version of it should get a little credit for taking care of it.
Does he just get credit, or is there a way to monetize this all the way down?
I think we do both. We figure out what the value system is, so they can get credit for it by noting who it is, or some kind of monetary reward. So if you had a Birka bag and you sold it on Sotheby's, right? And you sold it in Sotheby's.
Is Santa watching?
Is Santa watching,
Birka
right?
bag.
Birka bag.
Right.
So let's say in 2 years' time, and you get tired of that Birka because you're going to get a new one.
Right.
And you said, I'm going to put it on Sotheby's. And the people say, well, who owned it beforehand? Oh, it was Quinn. That value goes up.
Oh, okay.
And then the obvious question is, can you prove that Quinn had held this, used it?
Like the Marilyn Monroe dresses
Correct.
that they're trying to sell,
They're trying to
right?
sell, right? And they say, well, sure, we have the Met Gala photos. I can tell you this is the time that she wore it. Here's all the history. You get to own a piece of that history when you acquire it secondhand.
Oh, I love that.
Right. So you basically sold your story. They inherited the story, and it's part of their story.
I love that. I never thought about that. I also, we were talking earlier about healthcare products and beauty products. Let's segue into that.
Sure.
So how, let's say you have a capsule that is for youth and vitality and beauty. How would you verify that?
So all the supply chain logistics companies out there, supply chain meaning that you want to know where it was supplied from the raw materials all the way down to the consumer when you actually get it from the store or in the mail. So
I mean, I do have to say, sometimes I worry, like with supplements and things like that. That makes me nervous because you don't know where it came from.
Right.
They all have kind of a strange smell.
Right.
And they come in and they're very expensive and they're promising health and vitality or youth or beauty. And how do you know other than if you got a prescription?
So we start tagging it. So that's when we work with different factories. So part of the work we're doing in Belize is that we'll work with some of the factories, exporters. We tag it from the raw material. Where did you get the ingredients from? The vitamins, the powders. So that's the first entry. The next one is who's packaging it, who's bottling it, and who's shipping it.
Amazon,
Right.
usually.
Usually,
Right.
Because there are a couple steps before it gets to Amazon, and then when you get it, you can check and say, where did it come from, all the way down to the origin. And it's twofold, again, usually. One is to protect you, because you have peace of mind. The second is that the company does have some issue with it, the raw materials. They know who to pinpoint as well, because if there's a recall, if there's an allergic reaction, you want to know.
Which there have been.
And there has been,
right.
yeah. And so you see it on the bottles today. There's always like a little number, there's a lot number, and they're using a manufacturing number that has a couple of numbers on there, which really tells you which batch or when it was made. So they have some numbers.
Oh, so each batch, let's say we're baking a cake.
Exactly.
All right, we'll make this very simple.
Right.
So this batch of chocolate
Supplements
cake,
and
of
the chocolate
supplements
cake, right, or chocolate cake.
is going to be documented
Yes.
with a number.
Exactly.
And so if somebody gets food poisoning,
Yeah. You know which oven it was made in and who was the baker, and then what eggs did you use and from which farm.
wow,
Right.
that's important because we've had so many recalls since COVID.
Exactly. There's a lot of recalls and people skirt, those rules, but those rules are important. And so, again, the double-edged sword, it's not just saying that I want to know everything because I don't trust you, because if you do trust them, the companies want to promote it. They're like, we're so good at what we're doing. This is why we charge a little bit more.
So do you think it's the authenticity factor that,
Absolutely.
I mean, I think authenticity is everything, and we're missing that in our society.
Absolutely.
And everything's so fast, so digital.
Right.
Everybody's you're getting sold, one-upped.
Right.
And so do you think that this is going to be a shift in consciousness?
Absolutely. I think it empowers you to actually act on the consciousness. I think a lot of people want to be conscious of what they're doing, what they're consuming, what they're buying. And a lot of times they can only complain. This is actionable. It's like, well, I know this is fake. I'm not going to buy it. I'll try to buy it and see what happens. And then if it's bad, I will complain about it.
What has happened to, going back to luxury goods and things like that? It used to be that you could go to a store like Ferragamo or Tumi or you know, Cartier, and let's say your bracelet or whatever was broken, or your bag or your wristwatch, and they'd fix it for you, and it was guaranteed. It's no longer like that in the luxury market.
Their warranties have gone down.
Down. They're non-existent.
Non-existent.
Almost.
Yeah, almost non-existent. Like even luxury watches, it used to be 7 years to lifetime, and now they're 2 years, 3 years, 2 years, even 1 year, because once it leaves, they don't have a good way for someone to track if something was replaced inside the watch, and they know that it costs too much time to identify all the parts because it's so complex. But you can tag all of those things.
Well, do you think Provenio is going to bring luxury brands back to trust and authenticity? And do you think that you'll be able to?
Yeah, I think if you create the story and add the story to it, the authenticity creates that truth that people can trust. So that trust is what brings the value. So from authenticity of your messaging, creating the truth of where it came from and what you own, you create that trust between you and the brand. That trust is worth something.
Yes, definitely.
Right? You rather get something and say, I will pay a little bit extra because I know it's real, it's made well, and not with child labor or any kind of controversial situation.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. We have a few minutes left. Let's talk about child labor trafficking.
Yes.
Can Provenio help with that in terms
This
of,
is the idea.
This is such a strange question.
No,
I
no,
can't
but
believe
it's
I'm
true.
asking secrets at this stage.
No, but we thought about it because it is behind the scenes. A lot of people don't think about that. Is that they just think about the materials and is it eco-friendly? But at the end of the day, when it's not eco-friendly, it's made in volume, you're cutting costs on material and people. And so we want to protect those people. So everyone, even in those laboring facilities, they all have smartphones. To register who you are, to add yourself to the IMDb page, so to speak, that's important because not only you incentivize a person to do a good job, because if you have a SAG card, using that same analogy, and you do,
of course,
your royalties are coming to you for things that you put your heart and soul into.
Right.
So why can't you do that for anything you put your heart and soul into? That you put your hands on, your voice, you lend your time, your thoughts.
And it's giving people a platform to say, I matter, I'm here, I exist, I'm present.
And that's the authenticity that carries you all the way through to trust.
I love that. Let's talk, we only have a few minutes, about the cosmetic industry. How are you going to change the industry with Provenio?
We start with the factory, and we also talk to the PR, because part of the conversation we have with some of the manufacturing is that when you put your information on there, you add that story, you add that value. So when people do look into it, they're going to be more loyal. So for cosmetics, the issue with cosmetics is that one, obviously if you use cheap materials, it's bad. The other is that with Sephora and these types of companies, there's so much choice.
Right.
So to make yourself stand out from you to saying, well, I Dior one day, then I'll try MAC the other day, and it's like I don't like that. I go back and forth through different brands. The story will make the difference.
I know that for myself, I was just in Germany, and I ran out of my foundation, and I freaked out because they didn't have it in my color when I finally found, and I wound up going to a Sephora. I wanted to go to a Grand Magazine, a department store, because I like the sales and I like the story, and I like how you get to know the brand better when you shop that way.
Right.
And at Sephora, you're kind of going from one brand to the other, and you don't really know what you're buying. And then when you find something, you like, they might not have your color or your
Right.
size or
Or your
whatever
size,
it
or
is,
right,
right?
right.
And so this happened with me with 4 brands, and but you don't really know the story behind the brand.
Right. Well,
So how are you going to change that?
I think if everything is tagged and you have that story,
Mm-hmm.
the story does a few things. One, you create that trust with the brand.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that you create your ambassadorship of it. When you love the story and you love the product,
Yes.
automatically you talk about it,
Yes.
right? And so
That's true.
and then what you do with the cosmetics, if you like it and you talk about it, is that you tell people, say, hey, try this.
Mm-hmm.
This will look good on you. This lipstick, this foundation.
Right.
And they're going to naturally scan it as well and say, well, I want to know the story. I want to keep it, bookmark it, tag it.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've become an ambassador without even doing anything other than sharing the
Well,
story.
sharing is the best way that we
Correct.
can have advertising. We have just a minute left. What is your purpose?
I think it's to try to protect truth and regain trust.
I love that. Any other last statement you'd like to make?
I think there's so many places where we can do that, and so many different ways of providing that. At the end of the day, we want people to understand and believe that trust isn't a bad thing.
So can people go to provenio.com?
Yeah, provenio.dev.
Oh,
Yeah,
spell it so that they know.
PR, so it's like the word proven, IO, dot dev, DEV.
DEV.
Yes.
And can an
Yes.
individual participate?
Individual, businesses, and governments, because
Wonderful.
it's people who need to provide products and brands, the creators, they're people who consume it, own it, and want to share it and cherish it, and then governments who need to create a system of trust with their citizens.
Oh, Shy, you are just such a forward-thinking visionary. I thank you so much for being
Thank you
on
for
the
your
show.
time. I love it. I appreciate the time.
Thank
as
you.
Usual.
I can't wait to know more.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm Quinn Lemley with Secrets of the Stage. Join us every Sunday night at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time at mnm.org on Channel 4, or you can visit us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you have your podcasts. And please visit me at quinnlemley.com and sign up for my newsletter for the latest in music, style, fashion, and entertainment. Until next time, I'm Quinn Lemley with Secrets of the Stage.